Hi. Before, we were talking a lot about engagement models, and I want to update some of that with some more recent learning that I've had. So, my initial advice was to identify with your team, where were they so you could understand better what actions were more appropriate for the given situation. Let's start off by asking them to discuss the outcomes that they were interested in achieving. And this had to do with, when things were working well, what did flow look like? How were the customer needs met? Um, what did it feel like when they were just working at their best? Then on the flip side, the discussion around obstacles was focused on where they were right now. So the current as is, and this had to do with what were the impediments getting in their way? What was holding them back? And other things like that. And so once we had these goalposts marked down, the exercise became, what do we do to close the gap from obstacles to outcomes? Well, one of the key learnings and takeaways that I had from trying this out was that the teams that I worked with sometimes lacked the language to be able to describe both of these extremes. They focused much more on the lack of type statements, which, for example, when you ask a team, what is going on? What would you like to improve? It had nothing to do with language about meeting customer needs and being effective, much more about practices such as, we don't do retrospectives, we want to do retrospectives. Not something that would get them to this ideal state. And they also had very short time horizons where ideas about customer and customer needs were much further out there and more abstract than the projects they were working on in the moment. So because of this, this obstacle and outcome sort of model broke down for me kind of quickly. The thing I tried instead was focused much more on the part of the day-to-day that the team was really used to and that they can describe. At that point, we knew that they couldn't really describe this last piece about obstacles or this other piece about outcomes. So maybe there's something here about the things that they could describe that was going to be more effective. And by pulling that piece out and plotting it on a maturity map, I think I got there. So here's what that process looked like. We switched the discussion by asking the team to identify a user or a customer that they served, and then a need that customer had. From there, it came a point to talk about the day-to-day activities that the team would engage in to help meet that customer need. So that became a discussion looking at technical skills, sort of work management, something like planning, things that the team knew about, things that the team did, things that the team could describe, and other things that they needed to get their work done, such as different dependencies. And so by plotting all of these different practices out on a maturity map according to the two dimensions of value chain and maturity, the team was then able to see in real time through a bit of discussion, what were the practices that weren't really fit for purpose, and what the opportunities to improve those practices were. Now, this was a bit easier for the team to do because these are the different things that they actually do on a day-to-day basis. It was much more real, much less abstract, and it was tied directly from their day-to-day to a user need. One of the issues that another team I worked with ran into was that they had a poor time trying to identify who their users or who their user needs were, simply because the team had too many of them. And so this was one practice where I think, before this maturity map can really be useful, management needs to come in and make clear if a team is going to improve, it needs to do so in the context of meeting some user need, but they need to make that clear for the team what the team's users' needs are and how do they serve them. Otherwise, the different practices might really fit only into particular contexts. All right, thanks a lot. I hope that helped.